Coming up right now on SUTV News, students and professors gathered at the Capitol to protest budget cuts.
Went in a direction based on his policies that puts education, higher education, only for those who have the money to afford it.
A string of recent assaults off campus have some students on edge.
SUTV News starts right now.
Coming back in 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on SUTV News. I'm Kyle Rogers.
And I'm Amanda Peterson. Gas prices are rising and it makes sense to want to go back to simpler times. A gallon cost 97 cents in 1989, now nearly $4. Pennsylvania's governor is proposing a budget cut to take us back to 1989 spending levels, and students want the governor to know they don't like it.
Willing to pay more to get less.
Students from 12 of PASH's 14 schools gathered Wednesday to rally against proposed budget cuts. The theme, Back to the Future, asked Governor Corbett to take us back to 2012 in funding state schools, like other state funding beneficiaries.
It bothers me deeply that we invest $250 million to the horse racing industry, but with this proposed cut, we'll cut a total of $260 million to PASH schools.
For every dollar the Pennsylvania government gives students, the state makes $7, a fact not lost on legislators supporting the students.
You gotta let them know that the future of Pennsylvania, the future of this world is right here. You are our future.
Even though these students rallied in Harrisburg, it doesn't mean the fight is over. Politicians want students to keep the issue alive.
They may have to make this as much as an issue is on campus. They have to do the same thing in their community where they're from, all across the state of Pennsylvania.
And students do have some power here.
This is an election year. Every state house member is up for re-election. Half the Senate is up for re-election. We need to send a message that this is an important issue that people will not forget when they get to the election booth.
The Pennsylvania state primary is April 24th. Make your way to the polls to make a stand against the cuts. While the rally marched on in Harrisburg, college life also marched along on campus. But as Sarah Small reports, comrades in Harrisburg weren't forgotten.
As students began their rally in Harrisburg, back here at SHIP, Kreiner's clock ticked to 11:30. Sophomore Laura Antonucci, who would have liked to go to the rally, had work to do. And the course workload was a common theme.
I have a lot of work to get done, a lot of papers, projects, and stuff, so.
I have class at 1, and I have a lab this morning.
But pressing coursework doesn't mean students don't understand the big rally issue and what another year of state budget cuts might mean.
Anybody else? Paying more money to go to college.
As time goes on through campus, so do concerns from students.
And I was actually really bummed I couldn't be a part of it because I feel it's important that we get our voice heard.
By 12:30 in Harrisburg, organizers want to make sure they get their message out, while 12:30 in the Cub is business and play as usual, and a perfect reminder of what's really at stake.
I mean, I don't agree with it because I think that education is really important, and that's probably the last place that they should be making cuts at, especially like with how the economy is. I think there are other places that it could be taken from.
As the hands of time tick forward, students are forced to wonder, what can we do before time runs out? For SUTV News, I'm Sarah Small.
Back to the Future rally was a sequel to last year's protest. Bubba Smith takes us back in time.
It was a respectable rally. 300 protesters from 12 schools gathered on the Capitol stairs.
This year, we had buses claiming they were coming from 12 of the 14 institutions.
Now flashback a year.
Thursday on SUTV News, find out what me and 1,000 of my friends are doing here in Harrisburg.
The turnout was twice as big.
I was very surprised by actually how many students came.
There were a ton of signs.
I don't know if you've gotten any video of some of the signs, but they're priceless.
And protesters marathoned over 40 miles by foot to get there.
We had groups of usually 2 or 3 doing from 5 to 10 miles at a time, with some people doing 2 legs.
It may have looked and felt different a year ago, but 2012 protesters say the smaller crowd isn't a quieter one.
There's more energy this year. People are more angry.
I think there's a lot of enthusiasm this year from people to get out and say something about the governor's budget cuts again.
And busier students.
If a student couldn't make it here today, it's more than likely it's because they're trying to work.
I know kids that couldn't make it because of classes, things like that.
Are still important ones.
No matter if we have 1 or 700 students, all of us matter.
United we stand!
In Harrisburg, Bubba Smith, SUTV News.
To the Future rally ended early. APSCUF officials say the fight for the future continues. To send postcards to your legislators, visit apscuff.org. And students showed up by the busload for the rally on Wednesday, and SUTV's Luke Martin was there to give us an activist's eye view of the rally.
School trips don't always have an impact on the community, but these SHIP students were hoping to impact the entire state. While students waited for the long haul to Harrisburg, signs were made, slogans created, and pep talks given.
We're really thrilled that you're here.
But as the buses rolled out, the only sound was a simple message for Governor Corbett.
No more cuts! No more cuts!
$260 million in funding would be cut from PASHE schools if the cuts from Governor Corbett go through, and could make education much more expensive for students.
There's so many opportunities for research that higher education can provide for students, and creating a hindrance to people looking to better themselves and to help society with their education is so nonsensical.
As the buses pulled into the Capitol, the SHIP activists met with students from the other PASHE schools and made their way towards the Capitol building.
This is what democracy looks like!
They listened to speakers voice their concerns,
and we're going to have our voices so loud,
and made sure their thoughts were heard too.
I don't understand why Governor Corbett can spend $250 million for the horse racing industry, but he can't give us money for education.
Even graduates wanted to voice their opinions.
I've heard from several state representatives in the Republican Party who say that they're not going to stand for it, and it's partially because of the students starting to get out and speak their minds.
As the protest ended and the buses made their way back home, students were happy about their progress.
I think the message was absolutely carried across very well. It was focused, and it really targeted the fact that the budget cuts are a great hindrance to education.
Students hope that their actions will bring positive change to their school and the Commonwealth. Lucas Martin, SUTV News.
If you're a SHIP student and still want to get involved, APSCUF is planning at least one more event on campus to rally against the cuts. Governor Tom Corbett will visit Chambersburg on April 4th to meet with the Franklin County business community. Corbett wants to discuss the future of business growth in the area. The Rally for Business event is from noon to 1 at the Orchards restaurant. People who want to attend the luncheon can buy a ticket for $25. The event is not a political fundraiser, and some proceeds will benefit the 9/11 Memorial at Letterkenny Army Depot. You need to register before 1 p.m. on April 2nd, and you can register by calling 263-8282 or email Judy at fcadc.com. Still ahead tonight on SUTV News, students living off campus are worried for their safety after a string of assaults over the weekend. Hear what they think needs to be done.
It's coming up next.
TV News crime alert. Last weekend, police kept busy after reports of fights and violence on Richard Street and High Street. On Friday, a Shippensburg University psychology major was ready for a night out on the town before a frightening encounter with 2 men, sending him to the hospital.
For High Street residents Skylin Reno and Brianna Thompson, their Friday night didn't go as planned.
And he was knocking at our door. We opened the door. He came in hysterically crying, and he was standing there with his hand over his mouth. We couldn't really decipher what he was saying, just that someone hit him.
Their friend Kane was walking to their house when...
I just remember them coming up to me, and they asked me what parties were going on, and when I looked around to tell them, I looked away for just a split second. That's when I got blindsided and fell to the ground, took off running.
Today, Kane only has a few scratches from the random attack.
I think it was mainly because I was by myself and I looked defenseless, and I was just an easy attack.
This alley behind me connects to High Street, where Kane's assault happened.
Local residents say there's been more problems on this street in the last few days.
It was a big, chaotic frenzy.
The next night, 2 people were injured after a fight just a block away from where Kane was attacked.
Richard Street is known as a big party street, but in years past it hasn't been so much fighting.
There needs to be an end put to it.
And the group of friends hope local police will do more about it.
They just need to be more aware that people are coming up from other towns and causing havoc on our streets.
Nobody feels safe walking down the street at night, and that's just not how it should be. We're not in the middle of the city.
Kane was sent to the Chambersburg Hospital. He was soon after released. State police are handling the investigations. At last check, there were no leads in Kane's assault. Police say the incidents on Richard Street and High Street could be connected.
Officials sent an emergency text early Saturday morning following Kane's assault. While it didn't happen on campus, university officials felt it was important to relay the message.
So we have a multitude of ways of letting people know because we feel that one instant may be the difference between life and death.
The university sent over 6,000 text messages and emails to the campus community. If you haven't signed up, log on to ship.edu/emergency. Franklin Science Center will host 2 events for anyone interested in getting a better look at the stars. The Science Center will have a planetarium open to the public. The first program is on April 3rd and will focus on how the phases of the moon dictate the date for Easter. The event on May 1st will focus on the summer star patterns and why telescope observation is so interesting. Both events are $1 and will be at 7:30 in Franklin Science Center. Shows sell out quickly, so reservations are encouraged. For more information, email papajack@planetcable.net.
It's a big weekend for Shippensburg University's Learning Center. They're hosting the Mid-Atlantic Writing Center Association Conference starting Friday. Over 350 people from the Mid-Atlantic region and internationally will be in town for peer workshops. At first, the director of the Learning Center was skeptical to host it until one of her tutors really wanted her to.
Well, it was for the MACA exec board. It was the first meeting with all the new members, and Karen and I were new members last year. And they said, we need a place to host the conference.
And there was 3 schools that were interested in. She kept looking at me.
And I was sitting next to Karen, and I elbowed her. And
I just wouldn't look at her because I thought, you've got to be kidding me. This is so much work.
I said, Karen, I think we should do it. And she wouldn't look at me.
So I'm not looking at her, and she's looking at me with her big, bright smile.
And I said it 3 times after that, and she wouldn't look at me, so I talked to her after, and I said, I think we really need to. I said, I think it would be a lot of fun.
Okay, Cassie, I'll check it, do it.
I think it really helps the Learning Center out, and it helps us out as tutors to be able to experience this kind of conference, too, and what everyone else has to offer there.
What was your biggest issue with the paper?
Well, she says on my
And the Learning Center is inside the library. It's past Starbucks. For more information, log online to ship.edu and click on Learning Center. Good luck to them this weekend. Still ahead tonight on SUTV News, Zach Briscoe's here with your weekend weather forecast and find out how a club on campus is different from the rest.
And here's what is in the next issue of this week's Slate.
I'm Sam Stewart, sports editor from The Slate. Pick up a copy of The Slate this Tuesday to check out stories on Act 5's performance of Little Shop of Horrors, as well as an article on concert band in our arts and entertainment section. Turn to sports, where Nick and Sam's Hot Corner will focus on the upcoming NHL playoffs, and for a story on SU's lacrosse victory against Shepherd University. Ship Life has safety tips for students and puts a spotlight on a certain campus safety group. All these stories and more this Tuesday in The Slate.